as a team member in the 82nd Airborne Division. The last 5 years, Bill worked as a flight engineer with the Task Force 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, SOAR Night Stalkers, on the NH-47E Chinook helicopter. Another mouth. Bill achieved the rank of staff sergeant before leaving the Army for a career in policing. And today, Bill joins us as the North Carolina Senior Investigator of Hope for Justice, a charity working to bring an end to modern slavery and human trafficking and to protect the rights of victims and survivors. So if you guys will help me. Wow.
You're like, how does this dude go from Clan Lab chemicals to gangs and dope? Just an obscure thing. That just kind of describes half my life. So I'm a resident here in Morganton. Myself, my wife is from here. That's how I originally ended up here. So you have to excuse a little bit of my accent. I hail originally from Detroit suburb. Do not hold that against me at any point in time. So if I use the term pop or something like that, occasionally everybody goes, pop. What did I just say? And I'm like, oh, soda. And they're like, oh, man, you're talking about Coke. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got it. So you'll have to excuse it. I've been in the South since '94, so I will never go back north. There we go. I was quickly reminded about the North last time I went up October of last year to visit some family member, the last few family members that I got up in the Detroit area. Within 20 minutes of me being in the Detroit airport, I was like, no, this is wild out. This is wild out. Dirty, everybody's rude. It's just potholes everywhere. It's just not done. So I currently serve as the senior investigator for Hope for Justice here in North Carolina. There's 2 of us that are assigned to North Carolina. My partner, who's also the other investigator with me, retired from Long Island, New York. He was actually up there, ran the DA task force up there, and the dude is totally a rock star when it comes to investigative work. It was unique that I landed into this aspect. For me, I wanted to come back into the realms of doing investigations, but my body's a little bit too busted up to stay in policing. Full time, had a good opportunity to come into this, and this is a situation that I've seen pop up multiple times in my time working as a gang detective, and working in narcotics, and not realize the human trafficking facet of it. So we're going to discuss a little bit of the face of what this actually looks like and talk about some of the methods of the traffickers everywhere from sex trafficking down to labor trafficking. I hate to be a spoiler on this to tell you this actually exists, and this actually exists here within our own area. Okay, a lot of people think, well, it's just something that happens in California or in Cambodia or something like that. It's huge. So first of all, the group that I work for, we exist in 30 separate locations. Our headquarters is actually in Nashville, Tennessee, but we are 5 continents. We have offices in Iowa, Tennessee, and here in North Carolina, Colorado, and they're about to open up an office in Tampa, Florida. So our company originally, or this organization, originated out of the UK. So let's talk a little bit about human trafficking and give it kind of like a definition. And that's when it's a crime that involves exploiting a person for labor, services, or commercial sex. For folks on our side, or folks like Lieutenant Corvo, there's 3 elements we have to prove, like in our investigation for the police round. We have to prove force, fraud, and coercion. For everyone else in the community, you got to understand that this exists and you don't have to look totally at the force, fraud, and coercion. But for us, that's something that we have to key up on. So the TVPA, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000, gave some more definitions to human trafficking. So sex trafficking, which is a commercial sex act, is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or which the person induced to perform such act has not attained 18 years of age. So when I'm looking at commercial sex acts, that means what most of us one point in time would have classified as prostitutes, thinking back to my own experiences, which I'll describe in a few scenarios. We used to sit down and think, okay, why do I have a 16-year-old girl out here prostituting, saying this guy is forcing her? Okay. Unfortunately, law enforcement nor any law or us as a country had caught up to the fact that that was actual trafficking. We looked at it as a pimp, in a dirty word, prostitute or a hooker relationship is how we define it. But we didn't realize that there was a force element to this person. There was a crime that was driving this girl or this guy to actually perform these sex acts, okay? And we're talking about this, if we're looking at this for the sex trafficking side, again, I have to have force, fraud, coercion, unless that person is under the age of 18. Because juvenile cannot consent to sex. All right, let's be clear on that. They are deemed automatically on that. So if I am working a case or if I'm looking at a website, if I'm looking at some of these things like body rubs or rub mats or something like that, or some of these massage parlors, adult friend finder, plenty of fish. If I'm meeting somebody who is actually soliciting sex or selling sex out there, and I figure out that that person who is putting them out there is under the age of 18, it's automatically going to traffic. Now, there is a distinct difference between prostitution and human trafficking itself, and we'll describe that in just a minute here. So this is how everybody thinks human trafficking looks. Okay. This is how the media portrays this stuff. This is how the movies portray it. But I want you to think about this. Let me give you one name. Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. Convicted human trafficking charges. Because he was convicted on human trafficking charges, you got to think about this. Any lawyers in here? Any attorneys? Okay. This is the best way to make sense of this. If he was convicted on human trafficking, that meant there was an actual victim to that crime. If there was a victim to the crime, there was also a perpetrator beyond Jeffrey to prove that he sold that person by that force, fraud, and or coercion. And some of those individuals were under the age of 18. Why do we not hear those names of the people that bought the girls? Anybody have a clue? Yes, yes. Big names, big people, okay? I don't hide the bunches. If you ever think in any of my classes or anything, sometimes it scares me lost what you think when you're talking about the Clintons, you're talking about Bill Gates, you're talking about other politicians, other senators, other Congress folks, other billionaires and stuff that have visited in there. And then the court said, well, this is to kind of like protect privacy. We're not protecting the privacy of it. These victims were displayed on court. Everything, their names, their whole situations, their testimony, what they went through was broadcast in court. Okay. So is this a fair world we deal with right now currently? No, no. And that's why we're having a little bit of a problem with this TVPA. You know, trying to get this pushed back through Congress because they understand that, well, we actually have to disclose some of this information. So what you see here isn't the actual portrayal of what the real world is as far as human trafficking itself. Now, what tools will a trafficker use to control a person? Before we even look at what trafficking is, I want to understand a little bit of the tools. Force, fraud, coercion, the three big things. Number one, physical violence. Physical violence. A lot of people are like, well, does the pimp or the trafficker actually beat these people? Yes, yes, absolutely they do. Not in every instance. But I remember working a particular area of Nashville, Tennessee. Dickerson Pike was a hot area for prostitution. All right. And we would constantly see the same girls out there walking what they call the track area. And some of them, when you'd be talking to them and you'd just be checking them for warrants and saying, hey, look, as 2 in the morning, you don't need to be out here, you understand that. They look at you and they have like, you see where their lip was busted, their neck had marks over where you could distinctly, if I laid somebody's hands up there, it looked like a fresh set of imprints up there. To me, my thought was, well, whoever she was dealing with had probably assaulted her. But some of these girls would come out and say names like Fred or Nitty or Hollywood and use their name and say, I can't go in. Nitty will kill me. Look what he's done to me. And I thought, I didn't understand that there wasn't an option for some of these folks. Okay. To me, and this is an unfortunate thing, I kind of, after I look at 20 years of being in law enforcement, I kind of sit down and go, man, I wish I'd have known that because I missed so many victims. Because I didn't understand that it wasn't just their drive. They were just doing this to get the dope that they needed. Okay. This was a control factor that these individuals use. So, right? You can Google, you can YouTube, you can listen to podcasts. There's a phenomenal story. If you listen to Game of Crimes podcast, there is a human trafficking survivor on there from California talking about her experience from the kidnap to the point of assault to the point of confinement, where she was locked up in a location and raped for several months before her trafficker actually started selling her. She was secluded, confined, not chained, but in a location, one single location, and actually kidnapped. So starvation, okay, that's another force issue. Like, hey, guess what? You want to eat? You ain't got a job. I have you out here selling yourself. You're living on this corner of the floor of my place. Where you gonna go? You want to eat? You got to go out there and make some more money. You got to earn that paycheck. Okay. Fraud. We're talking about fraud. We're talking about misrepresentations. The romantic relationships that start online. Holy cow. All right. I'm working currently with victims. All right. So we are working cases as investigators. Even though I'm no longer law enforcement, we get contacted by victims who call in and give tips or referrals, or other NGOs, non-governmental organizations, saying, hey, I have a victim who was, say, trafficked in Seattle, Washington. And this person is now here in the Charlotte area. The trafficker has now found them and we need to move them to a separate location. So we work with other NGOs to find permanent housing for them. So one of those examples, my partner is actually flying a victim right now, putting that victim on a plane, sending that victim to another state to permanent housing, because the trafficker from Washington, who's already been prosecuted, is already out and located the victim once again. So, but that all started with romance, relationship. Somebody met me. Somebody paid attention to me. Felt good. It's the first time it had happened. From a broken home. They promised me the world. They took me to places like Las Vegas, to Charlotte, to big cities. And all of a sudden, as soon as I got there, secluded away from my family, I now have to sell myself because now I have to earn a paycheck or pay my way now. So false promises are things like employment. This happens with our labor trafficking folks, all right? When we talk about labor trafficking, I'll get into a little bit more about this, but let me give you a spoiler alert. When we think about labor trafficking here in North Carolina, most of the people I talk to says, well, that's going to be all of everybody who's Hispanic working in the fields and the farms for all these farmers. But let me give you the actual reality of what it is. That's not it. It's people being trafficked that are Hispanic descent by other Hispanics. Okay. And it's a pretty nasty situation. So a lot of them get promised that the fraud comes in from the promise of getting to have a better life and a better way of life. I'll bring you in from Guatemala if you come in and you can work for my particular, say, my cleaning company or something like that. But then somebody gets you here and they take your papers away, meaning your passport and everything like that. And they say, okay, you're going to stay here at this location. Give them a little bit of food throughout the day. So when I say a little bit of food, like basically table scraps, when they go to complain and say, hey, you're not giving me a paycheck, what's going on? And they're like, they'll either start beating them or they'll tell them, I'll have you deported. Okay. And that's the craziest thing, because do you think anybody's getting deported right now? Okay. Our borders are wide open. I have two good personal friends that are actual group supervisors. One is in Nogales, Arizona, another one is Del Rio, Texas for Border Patrol. Okay. I get to see the actual carnage, what's going on, and hear those actual numbers. So increasing the debt, like I will bring you here. You can pay off the debt. It'll cost $3,000 as soon as they get here, and they tell them, okay, no, it's going to be $5,000 for you to stay here. Then again, they threaten them. I'll call the police. I'll have you deported. Well, if you've come here from Honduras, Ecuador, Guatemala, you kind of believe that, because the police there, that's a total different situation than it is here in the US. So coercion, threats of serious harm to others, okay? That happens, especially that's going on right now, particularly with the drug trafficking aspect. My partner used to work JFK Airport. They used to catch body packers, meaning people swallowing lots of dope coming in. And these folks would sit down and say, look, they told me if I don't do this, they're going to kill my family. Again, police, we didn't understand. We didn't understand human trafficking. This just now is getting a face. We're just now putting a title to what these actual crimes are going on. And it turns out that was actually happening. It was a particular cartel that had engaged in declared war with Jamaica, because Jamaica was one of their stopping points for the drugs as it was coming in, for the cocaine as it was coming in, mostly going into New York. So confiscating, identifying documentation. That's one of the biggest things we're finding in labor trafficking is when they come and talk to us and I start getting their identification, I start asking, what's your name, your date of birth, where were you born? Believe it or not, some people don't know that. As crazy as that sounds, some people just say, I think I'm 27. I don't know if I'm 26 or 27. And you're like, how do you not know? And I'm like, do you have any ID with you? And they're like, no, this person has it. Okay, that's a clue right there. And I'm going to give you a rock solid example where I missed that hugely on the roadside. So threatening legal action, like, hey, I'll sue you and have you locked up. Again, they try to use the police as their actual reason to hold them. So sex trafficking simplified. Let's put this. Any sex act in exchange for anything of value. Anything of value. That could be housing, a bed, at a location, couch surfing, okay? Couch surfing, a lot of us think couch surfing is like some term, okay? When a kid has a problem, predominantly young children, young girls between the ages of 13 and 15, they leave home or they're from a problematic home. Anybody here work for DCS, DHHS, any counselors? Okay. Is that does that just represent about 100% of what you see as far as cases, problems at home? Whether it's abuse, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's mental illness or something like that. So when these folks leave, kids leave, they end up basically couch surfing on somebody's locations. So somebody preys upon that. Somebody says, well, hey, you want to stay on this couch, get this Happy Meal, you're going to have sex with me. Okay. And it's crazy when you talk to a 14-year-old, as you're talking to them and say, what have you done for sex? Well, I slept with a guy so I could get a Happy Meal. Happy Meal. It's a 14-year-old. Okay. So other things like, hey, you stay on the corner of my floor, you stay on the corner over there, you got to stay out of my way. Things like food. If somebody's actually, think about somebody that leaves house, a runaway, okay? They've got no source of income. They're staying with friend to friend to friend. Not everybody's house has food. So if they're having sex in exchange for that, or somebody's forcing them to do that, or somebody's saying, hey, I'll feed you, I'll take you across the street to Taco Bell, but you gotta have sex. Okay, that's sex trafficking. Anything that's giving them clothing, personal hygiene products, like simple things like, yeah, you can use my shower, but you gotta have sex with me first. You know, toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, controlled substances. I can tell you out of every human trafficking case that I've worked or looked at this side of the house as an investigator, 100% of the time, controlled substances have been involved. Whether it's been heroin, whether it's been prescription pills, whether it's been cocaine, whether it's been meth. All right, those are the top 4 that we see out there. So, and all of these are done with some element of force, fraud, or coercion. That is basically sex trafficking defined. And when somebody talks about coercion, well, I don't understand coercion. Because with force and fraud, I can usually have there's some tangible evidence there of that. But with the or else factor, I would use that in my investigation as excellent use of measurement, okay, to actually go in and prove it. So, like, for example, if my victim says, hey, you will have sex with my friends, or else you don't get to live here. You don't get to stay here with these other girls, stuff like that, okay? That right there is an element of coercion. For us, I'm not prosecuting cases. I'm putting a case together. If one was here in Morganton, I'd put the case together, collect as much information as I would that I can legally obtain. And I would pick up the phone and say, call Lieutenant Corvo, here's what's going on. I have a particular case, here's all the information. I've already corroborated it. I've basically worked the case 99% through. They just now have to jurisdictionalize it. Pick it up, corroborate, look, and say, okay, Bill is reliable. His basis of knowledge is good. This is laid out right. So the case is already there. We help law enforcement. We're kind of like the force multiplier. My ultimate goal, our ultimate goal, is to hand our cases off to Homeland Security. And Homeland Security has taken 100% of what we've handed them so far out of all of our cases that we've worked, which is good. I want to put them into the federal bit. So, but when I'm looking at force, fraud, coercion, force, sometimes there's evidence, okay? That helps. That's why coercion is usually the hardest. Force, there's usually something like evidence of whether bruising, torn clothing, there's blood splatter on the wall, there's blood stains on clothing, there's shoe marks where somebody got slammed or something like that, their foot scuffed down a wall or something like that, that I can prove and go in and take a picture of and say, this is the description of what the victim said. The victim said the trafficker picked her up and body slammed her. When she did, her foot scraped against the wall, and I can see an indent in the drywall, and I can clearly see a shoe mark on there, okay? That is corroborating that victim's statement. When I look at fraud, usually there's some sort of evidence that's in there. There's some sort of email trail. There's some sort of signature of checks being signed back over to the employer. i.e., if I'm working for Jansen's cleaning service, Jansen's cleaning service pays me every week, but as soon as I get the paycheck, I have to sign it back over to Jansen's cleaning service. And they in turn hand me $30 to live on for the week. I do not, unless I work for a bank, I do not hand my paycheck back over to my employer, okay? Half of my paycheck goes to the government already, and everybody's does here, but that's not our overall employer. So let's look at some facts. Runaways from foster care is the most common pathway right now to victimization, people falling into sex trafficking. And this is experienced by 44% of the youth. Within the first 48 hours of someone running away, whether it's from home or from foster care, 1 out of 3 of those kids are going to be approached and lured in to some sort of sex act by a trafficker. Believe it or not, there's people that actually go out and are looking for other people to get because they know a body can make a lot of money for them. Let's see if this will actually.
That's right, Tom. According to this group, she was found in an apartment complex about 20 miles from her home in Laverne.
We go to hotel, we go to pawn shops, these missing runaways, we know that they're vulnerable, they got no money, no clothes, no food. We got a call from an individual that night who said, hey, I met you guys earlier. I spotted her, I know where she's at, I saw her get off the bus at this apartment complex and she walked up in. When we located her, she was distraught. She was manipulated to stay there and not go back home. This individual saw and exploited her vulnerability. Sometimes at that age, we make mistakes and we go out there. And fortunately, this mistake didn't cost her her life and it didn't cost her being exploited.
So for the news, it was said that this girl had not been exploited. Okay. Because we're in a smaller setting and we're a little bit further away, I'm gonna give the real story. 16-year-old girl ran away from home. Kind of not an uncommon thing, happens probably 2 to 3 times a year. Busted home, full of addiction, domestic violence, constant verbal abuse back and forth between the mom, the dad, the mom and her boyfriends that are constantly in and out, the dad who comes in and back, into the house. The police department has been contacted and there's particular mandated things that we have to do when people are certain ages, especially when they're juveniles. One of them is things like set up command and actually go out on a missing or runaway juvenile and go out and actually try to find them. Actually document where officers are going and direct them to go up and drive to the area, talk to people. And in some cases, if we know that it's a real and danger thing, physically, officers going up and knocking at the door. We have been talking to everybody up and down Main Street from 1 to address 1000. And it's very intensive. This particular agency didn't do it though. Okay. They didn't put out an Amber Alert. They didn't do kind of what they were supposed to do until it had been about 48 hours later. The girl came into Nashville. Okay. Once the Amber Alert came out, everybody gets alerted. That's part of my function now also is we are a force multiplier. We will come in and we will look for missing children, okay? Because there's a little bit better tools that I don't want to say better tools, there's a little bit different resources we have outside of law enforcement capability that for law enforcement would have taken subpoenas and or search warrants unless it's under these emergency type situations. With this particular juvenile, there's about 4 to 5 areas in Nashville where runaways are going to go to. Luckily, they got to the first area, they went to the bus stop and they started handing out flyers. Like my group, they make flyers, we go out, we just start handing to people. As people were loading up on the city buses, one guy actually talks to my boss. That's my boss that was sitting up there. He's a retired FBI guy, okay? And actually talking to them and said, I saw that girl. I saw her on a bus yesterday and I know where she got off at. That's a good starting point. But then the guy says this, and this is how vulnerable these people are. He goes, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm a sex offender and I'm still on probation. I'll help you, but I need you to call my probation officer and tell them I'm helping you. He said, because I was very tempted when I saw that girl because I knew she'd be easy to get. Mm-hmm. Word for word. He just saw this girl on the bus. Okay, this is how fast this happens. They contacted the probation officer, said, here's the deal, he's working with us. This isn't a question kind of thing, we're just making a notification. He has not done anything, but he's gonna be with us for a little bit. The probation officer just says, okay, all right, Took them to the location where the bus dropped off. There's 3 apartment complexes right there. They started walking in apartment complexes and started doing this. 27th door they knocked on. 27th door. Every door in that apartment complex. The 27th door, Hispanic lady opened the door. Spoke no English. Okay. But people she was talking to, both those guys there, spoke Spanish. Started talking to her. Was asking if she had seen that girl. And right over her shoulder, they saw that missing girl from a neighboring agency, a neighboring city, 20 miles away, sitting on that lady's couch in nothing but a t-shirt and a pair of pants. Okay. Turns out the lady had brought her in, saw her walking around the apartment complex, and this is how fast this goes. Says, hey, you look distraught. You need a place to stay? She goes, well, yeah, I kind of left. I got nowhere to go. She says, but I think I'm going to go home because I got nowhere to go. Lady said, no, you don't need to do that. You don't want to go back to that. Come here. But she goes, well, I ain't got no clothes. I haven't eaten. I'm kind of hungry. She says, well, I'll feed you, but you got to do this. The girl already did traffic once. I'd say someone else in the apartment complex. Why that lady got paid so that girl could eat, have a spot on her couch. That's how fast this goes. This was all within 48 hours of her running away from home. Okay. That's one story of how quick this happens. So let's look at the sex trafficking venues itself. Number 1, escort services and online sex. And I'm going to show you where this is actually happening here. All right. So this is eBack page. This is Skip the Games. This is Instagram. This is Mega Personals. This is Erotic Monkey, Ashley Madison, Plenty of Fish. There's probably 50 hookup sites, or what you think is hookup sites, but it's actually somebody selling themselves out there. Hotels. This is where most of these sex acts happen at. Okay, we're talking from the sleazy paid by the hour all the way up to the 5-star resorts. And if I put a casino with a hotel together, I promise you 100% of the time I'll walk in there and find a trafficking victim in there at some point in time. Outdoor solicitation. This is where somebody is actually selling themselves. This is where somebody is actually walking up and down the streets. If we don't have this that I've seen here in Morganton, but what they call track areas or high crime areas where the prostitutes will walk around. Okay, and these are, and it's easy to spot. It looks the same every single time that I've seen it. From working uniform to working gangs to buying dope to buying guns from gang members. Every time I would see the girls come in and out, everybody looked the same. And you could spot them on the side of the road, walking around with their purse about this fast, acting like they're not paying attention, and they think they honk. And they start looking around. And I'm like, oh, yeah, it's going to be a prostitute. And then they try to look back at you again and kind of wait for your attention. Okay. For the guys, just about the same thing. That slow walk down the road, aimlessly in the middle of like, they're not going anywhere, not doing anything. You do a honk or something like that, and then they kind of go, look at you, and they start looking around like, why are they looking around when you honk at them and you're going that way? Well, you're a potential John. If you're honking and they pay attention to you, that's kind of like the untaught code. If I honk for somebody, honk at somebody, and they look at me, they're basically stating, well, yeah, I'm working, especially if they just kind of stop and stand in place. If I honk and they just keep walking, and they're walking like they got a purpose, like, I've got to get Dunkin' Donuts or something like that. I'm fat, so I'm always going to use some food now. So if they're scooting along like that, and that's different. But all of a sudden they honk and they stop, they kind of look around, they wait for a second. And I know this because I've been the guy picking up the girls, helping what was our gambling and prostitution unit at the time, and in some cases picking up the guys, okay? Man, we're kind of gross. I gotta put that out there. Okay, we're kind of handsy. Whew. That was probably the worst thing I've ever done undercover, is picking up another guy. 'Cause dudes are just handsy. I've like had to slap a dude before, where everybody's coming out like, bro, you gotta get off me, man. Right? I'm the police. Put it away, buddy. I'm telling you. It ain't happening. It's done, it's done. You know. So the other thing, bars and strip clubs. Okay, this is where you have the private dance rooms that go on. This is where the members only sections are at. Illicit massage parlors. We're gonna cover those. Okay, these are not the spas, like where I would get a couples massage or send my wife for a massage. This is one of those, they pop up at a business center. They're generally 98% of them, 99% of them are within the Asian network. And you don't see a lot of people coming and going. It's nothing that you see on a regular Google search or something like that. When you see customers going into there, like they'll show up, they come to the front door and they knock or hit a button. And somebody will like open up a set of blinds, or somebody will open up a door, look at them, look around. And then that person goes around the building and goes in the back door. There's a clue right there. I've never had to go in the back door of the business. Why somebody check me at the front door? So those are extremely, extremely huge. Commercial pornography, this is where people are selling themselves, having to do sex acts, being actually forced to do it. Casinos. I'm telling you, if there's a casino around, there's prostitution, there's human trafficking going on, okay? Write this down. Rebecca Bender, YouTube Rebecca Bender, and listen to that video, okay? She's got about a 4-minute video. She just explains her particular situation with trafficking, and especially in casinos. My experience, 20 years in law enforcement, we've worked some of these prostitution cases. You can see them stepping back, especially having casinos in the area, and we're close. We got 2 Kings at Kings Mountain. We've got Harris and Cherokee, okay? And then technologically facilitated. This is where somebody is doing interactive sex acts. They're forced to, like they have to get behind a camera and they're forced to actually do this. A lot of people sit down and say, well, that doesn't actually happen. Okay, there's a special you should watch on Netflix called The Most Hated Person on the Internet. The Most Hated Person on the Internet. Watch that, and how a guy was fraudulently tapping into people's cell phones in their accounts where they had taken nude pictures and stuff on them. And he was posting them on a thing called, Is Anybody Still Up, or something like that. And then forcing them to do things like sex acts, heinous sex acts on there. And for telling them basically, I'm going to exploit you. I'm going to let other people know, or I'm going to keep you on my website, which millions of people are actually watching now. So if we talk about the illicit massage parlors, or even technologically facilitated thing, a lot of people are like, well, we don't have these illicit massage parlors here. Okay. You want to see what an illicit massage parlor looks like, or how close they are, go to a site called Rub Maps. I know that sounds disgusting. Rub Maps, RUBMAPS. I did this yesterday, 4:17 p.m., December 8th, 4:17 p.m. I Googled this. North Carolina shows Asheville, Boone, Charlotte, Eastern Fayetteville, Greensboro, Hickory. How close are we to Hickory? 40 minutes. How close are we to Charlotte? An hour. Okay. So I go in and click Hickory location. Here are some of the ads posted up there. First of all, the first one, new hot girl, got her phone number, enjoy your day. Next one, best service, Asian full body massage spa. And it starts going in. And when you go in and click, they start talking about their services. And I promise you, these girls are not the ones you're going to see when you walk in there. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. So a lot of times on
mine and my husband's cell phones anyway, and maybe we've been to the wrong place on there, but we get text messages with pictures and invites to meet girls who are in town. We get Facebook things that pop up, new sexy girls in Hickory, things like that. They just show up on like the marketplace and stuff. Is that the same thing?
It is, when you
Okay.
start seeing ads for new sexy girl, hot date, looking for a hookup and stuff, and it's on these websites, that's what it is. Let's be clear, okay? Ladies, you wanna hook up, you know this, you ain't gotta get online and wait for somebody to respond. Heck, you can walk through Walmart, just look over. What you doing? Jimmy's gonna be like, "Ah!" Girl, okay, it's that easy. For guys, it isn't that easy, okay? So.
Welcome to Berks County.
Yes, I have used Walmart to see now, that's how we used to do it. So, and people are like, well, no, people, and and I say that because this is actually a defense tactic. Defense teams have sat down and said, well, my client did that because she was lonely. That was the only way to meet somebody, Your Honor. And I thought, okay, the judge is a guy, and even the judge knows, no, bro, that ain't that. She could talk to me at the drive-thru at Wendy's, and I'd be like, okay. She gave me an extra ketchup pack. I got 3 napkins. I'm coming back. You know. So again, this is an ad for Hickory. Here's what you see in there. We're close to Hickory. When you look at some of these other things, it talks about some of them are just straight out. Okay. Our services. Penis massage, first thing. Okay, we're there already. All right, full body massage, deep tissue chair massage, table shower. Okay. When y'all, I already see 3 people write that down. They're like, I'm gonna Google that stuff. And I gotta figure that out. And I promise you, when you do, you're gonna go, ah! Oh, my bad. Special new room, just all kinds of stuff. So this is one of the venues where they sell it. It's that easy to find it, but it's located. And it's if you see them pop up like that, automatically call law enforcement. Just report it. Just say, hey, I just want to report a new business that's at a location and it seems to be potentially an illicit massage parlor and stuff like that. Or to me on the face, it looks like it may be. Because I can tell you, for this area, unless we were like in New York, Orlando, about 16 places, big cities throughout the East Coast, if I find one of these massage parlors and they're Asian run, I can tell you about 99% of the time, I'll spend 20 minutes on it. I'll just start watching how the clients come in and out, where they park. I will start seeing guys actually walk out. I'll watch live feeds. I'll pull up rug maps and I'll watch a guy leave. And all of a sudden I'll see a review pop up within 5 minutes of somebody leaving. And I'll be able to take a look back into social media and see who that person is and identify them with that license plate that they just pulled into the vehicle, that they just pulled in that parking lot and go, oh, that's gonna be it. He just gave this lady a 5-hand rating, like a 5-star rating. So, but I would immediately report that, okay? Now, I know Lieutenant Quo was going, oh my God, Bill, you're gonna kill us with all these calls and stuff like that. But they want to know this. They want to know this because that's something they want to keep an eye on. They now send out like their proactive teams to say, hey, what does it look like for the patterns of guys going in there? Okay. Some of these, here's the other clue. If I see all female masseuses in there and they have a sign on their door that says no females, 100% of the time, somebody's walked away charged and we've shut down a business, padlocked a business under a nuisance abatement order. Okay. So 83% of sextortion cases happen over things like social media platforms. Females make up 78% of those. And the average age of those females is 14 to 16 years old. this is what's scary, okay? I've got a 16-year-old daughter. This really, really, really scares me, okay? Especially knowing how gross these dudes are and how fast this happens. 55% of trafficking victims met their trafficker online. How many of your 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-olds, even your 13-year-old kids have one of these? Okay. I promise you, your 14-year-old kid knows this better than you do. I promise you. Okay. There's certain signs and things to look for that, you know, just outside of the common teenage thing and stuff. If you suspect something is going on with your kid and say, why does my kid all of a sudden disappear sometimes? She leaves while we have issues. She comes back a few days later and she's got really nice clothes. Or now she's got a nice pair of pants and a nice necklace, or $150 or $200 pair of Jordans. And throughout the day, she apparently has to go to the bathroom 16 to 18 times, just quietly. When you say, are you okay? Are you like, do I need to take you to the doctor or something going on? And they're like, no, I'm pooping. I'm like, no, not 16, 18 times a day, you're not. Okay, I promise you that. Number one, you'd have blown the roof off of the house, okay? And number two, it just don't happen like that. So explicitly, sexually explicit material has been sent. There's 119% increase of that in the United States. COVID took the online exploitation and drove it through the roof. Think about how many kids were online for school. Think about this, okay? These traffickers know that they can get somebody online, and it's a simple thing, okay? Like for the law enforcement classes, we put you up on a live feed with some of our fictitious accounts, and as we're going through, the screen will be playing. And you'll see a guy tagging in, hello, beautiful, how you doing? Where I'm posting like a 15-year-old girl who's having problems with my mom right now. And dudes are all of a sudden, as the class is going on, you can see guys in there saying, I'm looking for somebody to be a sugar daddy for. And I'm like, oh, really? Not realizing it's okay. It's silly how fast these guys will get on there. So 82% of child predators admitted learning about their victims' likes or interests through social media sites, Instagram, Twitter. Okay, I'm telling you, my daughter, it's locked down on everything. Like she is blocked on several of those sites. When she pulls up and she rages, she was like, how come I can't get on Instagram? Because you'll know who the other person is on the other end. Well, yes, I nobody lies about that. And I'm like, yeah, they do. You're just stupid. You just don't know this. You just don't want me talking to people. See, right there tells me you would 100% fall prey to some of this. Okay. So a lot of people say, well, why risk it then? Why would I look at sex trafficking? Why not just stay out there? Okay. Well, controlled substance is the #1 illicit moneymaker in the United States. Okay, worldwide, controlled substance. Out of illicit profits, controlled substance #1. Human trafficking is #2. #2 illicit money. People are like, well, why is that? Because I don't have to re-up a person. If I'm a cocaine dealer, all right, and I'm selling 2 kilos a week, and my kilos come from Arizona, that's my source of supply. By the time my cocaine gets to me, there's probably been about 10 or 15 people handling, from drug trafficking organization to DTOs that are moving it up via Mexico, to the time it hits my source of supply, the guy that I'm buying from there, from the time it gets put into another vehicle, broken down from several loads and transported across the US. There's a lot of interdiction things that could go on, that vehicle could break down. There's a lot of robbery crews and stuff out there. So sometimes I may not always be able to get that 2 kilos every week. Whereas if I have a person, that commodity is always there. And in the most disgusting way I've heard one of the traffickers actually explain it, he said, Man, that body, he said, man, that girl, it's always Rita. He's all she got to do is hit it with a baby wipe in between customers. When he said that, I wanted to come across the table. I sat there because this was a 15-year-old girl. And this was like a 37-year-old dude. I sat there, I still get, you know, me doing this right now, I still get a little upset when I hear that, because I'm like, dude, that's just straight up trash right there. So, and a person, it's average, it's estimated that they can make up to $200,000 a year for that trafficker itself. You want to learn about some of this mindset? Buy this book here called Pimpology. I promise you, you won't make it past the first chapter in there without your blood pressure going through the roof, okay? This is where a guy talks about him getting into the pimp business of being a pimp. And that, not just a pimp, like pimp was a status, like the status. Not only having girls, but being pimp itself. But he talks about running girls at the age of 13 or 14 and learning it from his dad. And the girls that he was running, not 1 to 2, like 10 to 20, were also like between 12 and 15, as he was starting at the age of like 13. This book is considered the pimp Bible right there of ideologies, the mindset of this person. So with that, there's this. This is why this works, because here, people are always going to be addicted to this. And it's very hard to shake some of these addictions, especially with opiate addiction. Opiate addiction, I've seen, I've dealt with meth, I've dealt with cocaine, I've dealt with all that. Heck, I've been sick. I've sat in places buying dope and buying pseudo pills from a guy who was cooking by anhydrous ammonia, and I'm buying 25,000 pseudo pills of undercover capacity. Why he's cooking anhydrous ammonia? Okay, and so I've seen that dude come out of that. I don't see many people coming out of the opiate addiction side. So the traffickers realize, hey, I can keep them hooked with this, and I can push that commodity here. I'll get a little bit of commodity here, but now this person is flipping, I'll start putting them on some of these locations. So labor trafficking. How do we see this here? And again, the concept most people thought is, in the way I've heard it, but what that's gonna be all everybody that's Hispanic who's working in the fields and stuff like that for the white farmer. I'm telling you, since July, since I've come to this junction here, I started this position as the North Carolina Senior Investigator for Hope for Justice, July 8th of this year. Every one of my labor trafficking cases, 100% has been a Hispanic trafficker against a Hispanic victim. 100% of them. 100%. Okay, and it hasn't been somebody in the field, it's been somebody with a cleaning service, it's been somebody with a dry cleaning location, it's been somebody with a car wash. Okay, it's been somebody at 2 different construction sites. 100% of the time. That kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, okay, that was not what I was expecting in here. So migrant agriculture work is how some of these are. One of the cases, it was somebody who was Dominican, went to Ecuador, met some folks and said, I can bring you to the US and have you work. We were able to track that whole system of migration, how the lady, if there's a trafficker, a female trafficker, who brought in 5 people, one of them of which was a juvenile, okay? And brought them in to the US. We could track how they came in through Mexico, how they entered into the port of San Diego, how the juvenile got held up temporarily in detention at that location. It was brought in by the rest of the way, spent a little bit of time in Miami, was trafficked there, same thing under labor trafficking and stuff. Forced to work to pay off the debt, eating very little food, and not even the equivalent, maybe 500 to 600 calories a day. All right, until they landed here in North Carolina, very close to here also, within an hour's drive. Okay, so in that case is still actively going by a federal bank right now, as we've done a handoff with that. Other things, magazine sales, traveling crews. All right, We don't see as many magazine sales crews here in Warrenton. State but Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh. Hey, I'm so-and-so working with this particular organization, and these crews, they just move kids, troubled youth, giving them an opportunity from one place to another, okay? They basically put them up in a hotel and give them a quota. You gotta sell this. You gotta sell this much. You need to sell at least $100 worth of magazines for me to get your dinner tonight. All right.
Question,
Yes.
if that happened, I speak Spanish, if that happened and someone knocked on the door like that, who would you report that to? What would be the best?
Always call the police, because I'm not sure, there may be a permit issue. Some city ordinances say you have to have like a permit to do that door-to-door sales. When we would see these crews come in Nashville, Tennessee, where I was working at, it came to us to work as narcotics, because half the time we were finding that it was a trafficking venue, and a couple of the kids that were on these crews were runaways and had been reported missing in other states, predominantly Florida and Texas and stuff. But reported to the police and said, hey, there's a crew walking around selling magazines and stuff like that. Give your location, try to get a good description. Ask the person, the kid, to say, hey, how often do you travel? Maybe ask them a few other questions like, hey, are they still in the neighborhood? Have I seen them walk around? When they left my house, did they go next door? Are they still in the neighborhood right now? Don't wait till a day or two, because it makes it very hard for the police to come in, because these crews come in and they're gone, they're just sitting hot.
Would it be appropriate to ask them any questions about?
Yeah, ask them, say, hey, how much do you make? Because these are some of the questions we've done before. How much do you make? And one kid just, it was so funny, as I was talking to him, I was like, he goes, man, I made more than you did last year. I probably made $80,000 last year. I was like, you got a bank account? No. So what do you mean you made $80,000? Did you walk away with $80,000? Well, yeah, well, what'd you spend it on? Well, you know, I just put my money up, and I was like, and I looked at him and I gave him the reality. I said, bro, you ain't showered in like 2 or 3 days. Okay. I said, you may have made somebody $80,000. You yourself, as this 15-year-old kid who actually was wanted out of Cape Coral, Florida, as a runaway, and a danger runaway. There had been like Amber Alerts and stuff set up on him 7 months prior, but he was getting run around by them. And later on, he finally admitted, hey, I sell these magazines. They take from place to place. They put like 8 or 9 of us in a hotel room together, so some of us have to sleep on the floor and everything. And I said, well, how does it determine if you get to stay on a bed or not? He goes, whoever sold the most that day gets the bed. Everyone else gets the floor. And I was like, wow. So yeah, ask him, say, hey, how much do you make? Say, I know everybody makes something. There's always money in there. Say, how much do you guys, make off this? Because I'd like to help you, maybe they'll tell you, maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just sit down and say, oh yeah, like typical kids. Oh, I make a lot of money. I'll make $10 off of what you're about to buy. And it's not always just magazines. Some of them are just going door to door for charities, selling candies and stuff like that. So yes, but I would report it and try to pay attention to where they went. Especially if you just saw, like, most of the time it's a common thing. It'll be like a van. It's not like always the white van and stuff like that, but they want to house the most people in there. So they'll drive kids around and put them in a large vehicle and drop them off at a location and put them out on different streets and run around and pick them up. So hotels, resorts, things like housekeeping, food processing places. Do we not have? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I ain't even been there. Okay. And anybody here work for Case Farms? Okay. I'm just saying, if I was looking at something, I'm not gonna lie to you. If I was Department of Labor or something like that, I'd be like, yeah, because I've seen.
Comes in every year and should work them out.
Yeah, and I've seen van loads of people coming in, van loads of like workers getting out, like, and the van gets smaller, people starting to get out of the van.
I did have a question about the magazine sales. I haven't done it on the sales. Is that legit though? Are there people that really do come out from different states, kids that do that?
Yes,
Okay,
Absolutely.
because I had a girl that come to my house this summer, she was from like Colorado, and I was like, what the heck are you doing with a little mortgage? But she was driving her own vehicle and said it was for college, so. Right, so now you're making me think, because like.
Is it worth it to drive from Colorado to Oregon to sell magazines to make money for college versus going to Belgium working as?
Right, well, that's what I asked her, and she said she was in some kind of program they had. She didn't go into great detail.
Yeah, and a lot of these go under some title of a program to earn money for scholarships and stuff like that. And you'll find that 99.9% of them don't provide a scholarship to somebody. They're like, if you come here and work this summer, if you sell $80,000 worth of materials for us, then we enter you into our scholarship raffle where you can in turn get $50,000 for a college scholarship. Yes, ma'am.
I will tell you about Case Farms. They do travel to nonprofit organizations and try to hire the homeless. Because we've had that happen. And when the individuals have worked there and they came back, they told stories. And I actually met a landlord that somebody from Ecuador put 11 holds on apartments for people to, when they were coming from Ecuador and coming here to work. And that's what that was.
Yeah. And again, Spanish community, I get preyed on, okay? And I'll give you an example. Like one of our other, there's another investigation going on the other side of the US. And basically it is like a labor trafficking thing, okay? Similar type thing, poultry processing, turkeys and stuff like that, except maybe somebody who is maybe a congressional person within the US may have some ties to it. As soon as they start to shut the company down, as soon as the heat comes on, the company says, hey, we're done, we're shut down. Well, some really good investigators start to see all of a sudden influx of kids start to leave the school district here, 3 counties away, an influx of those same kids go enter into a school district. At the same time, that company left, but created another business under another business name doing the same thing, happened to be just that same county where those kids entered into the school system. What do you think just happened? They just went from one location to another. Okay, these are things that we track. Okay, we have the ability to do that and work these cases. So, forced begging. I know this sounds crazy. Everybody's like, that's not a real thing. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Okay, I've seen it. This group was in Morganton at Walmart. I remember walking in, and this was just right as soon as I had come in to work for this organization. All right, there's a dude running around like 3 or 4 people that were getting in, sitting in a van, basically, and as people were coming in, like 2 people got into the van, 2 people got out, they were walking around with buckets. And I was like, huh. And they walked up and said, hey, I work for Miracle House of Hope Ministries. And we're taking up donations today and stuff and walking around, okay? Well, those donations, what do you think those donations are doing? These people are basically living in a ransacked kind of like apartment. There's about 12 to 15 of them that are living in there. This group has actually been banned in South Carolina. And they keep popping into there. Like the Attorney General, Better Business Bureau, Consumer Affairs, a bunch of others have banned them. All right. They were here, and some of the interviews with some of the people that were in the program, they say it's a religious program and it's for people with addictions. So we, as Bruce Little, who was the founder of this is anything you can Google, says we're giving these people an opportunity. We're giving them a house to stay at, and we don't give them quotas. Well, some of the people left that said, yeah, actually do have a quota. The quota is $75 a day if you want to stay in that apartment or in that one room with the 12 to 13 other people. And if there's a special event around Charlotte or something like that, like the Panthers are playing, the Hornets are playing and stuff like that, that quota now goes to $150 a day. And they get to keep whatever is left. So some of these individuals, when they were interviewing them, said, what do you make on an average day? And they says, well, one day I've made as low as $7. And they asked another girl and said, what's the most you made in one day? She says, one day I made like $47. So what do you think you average? I don't even, said this exactly. I don't even know how to average. They says, okay, what did you make yesterday? She goes, about $21. Okay, that was when they interviewed the pastor running this nonprofit. He says, oh, that's not a quota. We give them a goal. They bring in whatever they bring in and stuff. This dude has been hit like he's got to answer on a lot of IRS stuff right now. The important thing is, when I say it's here, I was one of the people that came up to in Walmart. Okay, and I was like, huh, this is actually unique. So some of the indicators you can look at for some of this stuff, they avoid eye contact with people, they appear fearful, they're not in control of their own papers. That's something we always find. 100% of our labor trafficking cases, when the victim comes out and starts talking to us or contacts us for help, or some of the victim witness coordinators contact us and say, we've got a human trafficking victim here. They've come from a different location. They're in our court system right now. Can you guys help us take a look at it, stuff like that? 100% of the time, we've always found that the person who has brought them here is holding all of their papers documentation. Okay, whether they've come in from Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Guatemala, El Salvador, from Mexico, Honduras. The trafficker always is in control of their paperwork. And I'm going to give you this as an example because I've seen it. I absolutely missed it. I still to this day keep myself from what I'm working narcotics. We get a tip out of Flushing, New York. This is while I'm in Nashville. We get a tip from Flushing, New York, and it's from a law enforcement agency saying, hey, there's a particular Asian bus line that's coming through and it has more than $200,000 of unaccompanied money on it. For us, that means we're about to do some bus interdiction. That means I'm going to stop this bus and we're going to find the $200,000 that's unaccompanied on there. That means it's a money laundering network is what it is. Right now, the Asians community in Flushing, New York and Los Angeles are doing a lot of the money laundering for our cartels right now. We're talking billions of dollars. Okay. This is running up and down the interstates. If it is illicit massage parlors and stuff like that, or illicit goods and everything within the Asian networks here on this side of the US, I promise you it's coming out of Flushing, New York, or Atlanta, Georgia, one of the two places. We stop the bus, we're talking to everybody, we find the bag, it's got a little over $200,000 in it. Nobody on the bus is claiming that's gonna be their money, okay? Let me be clear, if I get out of a seat and I drop 36 cents and you say, Bill, is this your change? I'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm married. Are you kidding? I got it. At the same time, I'm trying to reach up and take 36 cents out of your pocket. Okay. So as we're standing there doing up our paperwork, nobody's claiming the money, bus driver is talking to us. And he says, hey, there's something weird going on. So what do you mean? Something weird going on? Yeah, there is. You got almost $250,000 on your bus and nobody's saying it's there. He goes, no, not that. He said, see those 5 girls over there? I said, yep. He said, that lady standing with them? I said, yep. There's an older lady and 5 girls that appear to be probably between the ages of 20 to 25. He says, they were loading on here. He said, and I was scanning everybody's tickets. He said, that lady was holding all their tickets and had all of their IDs. And he said she got mad at the girl because she opened up her purse when I asked for her ticket. She opened up her purse and he said, I looked in her purse and saw nothing, or her bag that saw nothing but condoms in there, like hundreds of them, and loot. And I was like, okay. And he goes, one of the other girls had set up a box for me to load on here because I was the pass-through driver. He said, I put the box on there and the box had busted open in the corner. And he said, that's why you found all of those condoms underneath the bus. And there was like a box that busted open. There probably had to be 1,000 condoms in there and like bottles of lube rolled out. I didn't care because I'm looking at an interdiction stop with almost $250,000 that we're about to seize. Looking at this now, those 5 girls were getting run through these illicit massage parlors. And this is, they're getting trafficked. They're brought here by the coercion method of, hey, you can come to these places, you can come here, we'll bring you to the US, we'll give you a job, we'll give you a place to stay, we'll feed you, you can repay your debt by working here, and they go into these massage parlors to work. Or the nail salons. The nail salon. Now, nail salons are unique, okay? And I'll point that out in just a second. What happens is these girls stay in place for about 6 to 8 weeks tops. And they get moved from the location that they're at. And say, if I'm watching a place in Hickory, or a particular 3 that we're watching in Charlotte, we've already watched the transfer of girls twice going from there into Columbia, South Carolina. Okay. At the same time, we're watching a transfer of those girls arriving at the massage parlors because somebody pulls up in a van and 11 girls get out. We've tracked the house that they're staying at. We're watching the girls leave the house, get into this van, and that van does not stay at that location. So they're being housed there. They drop the girls off at the massage parlor place, then they leave. So as we're sitting up watching some of this, we watch the girls start to leave one night, about 4 a.m. They load up in a different van, which drives away, and it doesn't drive to the massage parlor. As we're following it, we track it all the way to Columbia, South Carolina. And they get out of the van and they all walk into a particular house. As they walk into that house, another 6 girls walk out of that house and get into the van, and that van came right back into Charlotte, drop them off. I was like, let's watch the place let's watch here and see if the girls here in Charlotte don't come out and get run from that house to this massage parlor. They did. Okay. This is the same thing we saw in Nashville, Tennessee. This is how these girls are trafficked. They are run up and down eastern coast like this. They all originate out of Flushing, New York. In their secondary locations, when they break them up, like if it was a drug stash house, the place that has 100 kilos is going to be Flushing, New York, but my secondary stash house would be Atlanta, Georgia, where I've got another 50 kilos. Same thing with the girls, okay? So massage or the nail parlors, it's not just that. They're forced into the labor thing, coming to do nails, right? And it's one thing if the way to identify that is you go into some of these nail parlors, and if you're going in and say get your nails done every 6, 7 weeks or something like that, or every month, every couple weeks, and you see different people about every 2 to 3 times you come in there, it's a whole different group of employees. 100% pay attention. Because that right there, yeah, just don't know what this is. It's the same thing, just like it is with the massage parlors, it's going into the nail parlors. Just the same.
But did you just say that they're using those girls moving from face to face to run drugs? Because you saw kilos and Flushing and.
No, I was using the bodies, the comparison like bodies, kilos, cocaine. So, but our drug traffickers now are migrants that are coming in by Mexico. You just brought that up. That's a good spin to say our cartels now are capitalizing this. Our cartels were capitalizing in human smuggling, bringing people in that voluntarily said, I want to come to the US. Okay. I don't see people voluntarily coming in to say, I want to be sex trafficked. So what's going on is the golf cartel right now is wristbanding people, putting wristbands on people. I know this because I know bosses in Del Rio, Texas, and the Dallas, Arizona, and they're sending pictures and talking about what they're finding. The golf cartel, there's barcodes on them, and the cartels are like scanning that. If you came here, say if I send him into the US, I can scan that and it'll tell me he's paid, okay. I'm bringing her into the US and scan her barcode and it says she hasn't paid, she still owes a debt. I'm like, here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna work for us. So I may send her, say, to Wichita, Kansas, to start running my drugs from this location to this location. Now she's forced into the drug aspect by labor trafficking because she's an expendable. If somebody gets caught with my drugs, it's her. It's nobody within the organization. You are now forced into labor trafficking as a mule. Okay. Just a heads up too, we're the largest consumer of controlled substances in the world. In the world. So this is extremely, extremely huge. Labor trafficking, sex trafficking, heck, our cartels have even capitalized on some of this stuff now. So, is we're running here. Any questions?
I do.
Want to close some time? Go ahead.
And I missed the beginning, sorry.
No, you're
GPS.
fine.
And I don't know if we talked about this, so as our society or as humans or as agencies, I know that there's certain products and companies I don't buy stuff for because I know what's behind a lot of that. What is the long-term solution? There is a long-term solution. It may look good on paper, but us achieving it is gonna take a while. So I know, like, for instance, the nail thing, we as society need to stop patronizing companies like that. And unfortunately, Americans want cheap and they're not willing to pay the extra price in order for that. So I do understand that that's the way it is with a lot of the bigger companies. So where do you see us going in the future? What is the long-term solution? And the perps that are doing this to these children, what is their punishment in doing this as well?
Long-term solution is right now, if you look at Slave Free Alliance, and they're partnering with Hope for Justice, and they're looking at the global supply chain to figure out where these products are coming in that are made via labor trafficking, whether it's sweatshop type things. And it'll tell you which companies buy, say, maybe a dye that is produced in Bangladesh, India, that is in that particular region where it's at is known to be nothing but forced labor. And it could be like Target is the buyer of that because that is a particular dye that goes into, the Target brand, maybe on their plastic bags or something like that. They're looking at that supply chain all the way down to there. And everybody's like, well, how do we fix this? And there's only one answer, and this ain't going deep on you, but I'm sure I'll give it to you. Everybody picked up the daggone Bible and used that as their moral compass. 99% of this will go away. Let's just call it what it is.
That's right.
And I'm sorry if that offends people. Read the book yourself.
Because
You know,
even the latest on what Apple is doing in China to their people.
Yes.
Apple has not stood up and condemned that at all. So we as a society, and if human rights are a big thing to us, we should not be purchasing any of their products. I mean, that's why I don't buy Nike. I haven't bought Nike in 30-some years.
It's identifying what goes into that supply chain. And if you look at the Slave Free Alliance, you look at the Hope for Justice .org website, you can see where they're identifying in some of their missions, how they're working with other groups to identify what is being supplied as far as like labor type chain. The ultimate thing is too, how to fix it. Number one, here in the US, education. People have to realize that, guess what? Slavery didn't go away. Just got to face. New victims. Okay, that's what it is. Okay. And most of these victims right now are juveniles. Okay. Especially with the sex trafficking thing. The other thing is we have to educate, and I'm not bashing our criminal justice system, but I'll tell you, there's not as many prosecutors that are well versed in this. This is a new, it's not a new crime, but it's a new face to crime. As far as an illicit commodity, whereas drugs, you know, you could work a drug case, but now working a human trafficking case with a person as the commodity becomes a unique thing. Especially when we get deep into victimization and stuff like that, it's very hard to deal with folks who have been in such trauma and stuff like that. We had a victim leave, we had her safe house. Okay, she left. As we were moving her to another location, she left and was already being trafficked in Austin, Texas, within the last couple of days of leaving us here. And call saying, this time I really need help again. I know a victim is going to leave their trafficker up to 6 times before they finally say, it's time to get out. Okay, it's kind of like addiction. How many times does it take? I take 99.9% of the time that I've dealt with folks that have addictions to controlled substance or alcohol, have never successfully came out the first time. Multiple iterations. So, yes,
So I have 2 questions. The first one is, if you are working with a drug cartel, and how do you keep yourself safe? Like, do they identify you or just?
no, not for me, because I'm working as a non-governmental organization, so my job is, I'm basically like an intel analyst. I put a bunch of stuff together in the format the police needed, that's gonna be from A to Z, put a bow on it and say, here you go. If somebody gave me a case in the style of doing what I do now, I've been like, holy cow, where was this person like 5, 6 years ago? So I don't worry about them. I'm military vet too. I've worked cases with cartels. My partner who works with me, he spent time in Peru, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador. Hey, he's never had a problem. I'm just one person now. It'd be different if I was going after Juan Chapo and I was one of the main heads going after him. Then I kind of worry about it, but I don't. He stepped off and it's like this. Even though the top falls down, like, so is somebody that. So was your other question?
So it's just your own, I've been working with this all the time, and it's just overwhelming. So how do you like self-care and self-preservation when you're day in and day out? Just curious.
The best tool for therapy and everybody, because, and I've been asked that before, everybody's like, dude, how much have you seen? I've had a pistol stuck in my face doing on kill people and talk. I've seen people, guys might get killed. The best therapy to deal with this for self-care, and pick up that Bible. And a Planet Fitness membership. So that's the best. I mean, I still have those demons. There's still nights. I still hear screams. I smell fires. There's times I smell like pine, and it reminds me of just certain things because we're certain. We use Afghanistan that we were in, and we're very piney when we were shot down. But then it also brings me back to SEER school where they train you for POWs stuff, and we were in a pine forest in Maine while I was getting beat. So there's sometimes I smell pine, and I'm like, ooh, nobody's about to smack me, are they? And my wife's like, you okay? And I'm like, I don't like the smell of pine. It's like, it's just that particular. It's just when it gets to a certain smell of pine, it just I don't go weird or anything like that. But you're just sitting, kind of go, ooh, I don't like that smell of pine. That's selected that phrase. So
Bill, did you know about these farms, like everybody knows, how can it keep going on? Now they have two case farms there.
well, I haven't worked on. I'm just from the outside looking in. If I ended up like if somebody called and said, hey, there's suspected labor trafficking at this location, I would automatically assume and say, I kind of know what I'm going into. The other thing is, it's very hard to look at those like that, because those folks will come in, Case Farms will, they employ hundreds of people. But I promise you, 99.9% of those people pass their e-background, their e-verify, which is what you have to have. My brother is a large foreman for a large major industrial concrete company out of Charlotte. And he said, dude, he said, we will have waves of guys come in that we will hire. And he said, they will come in, and he said, every one of their social security numbers be a brand new social security card, and all their numbers are like one digit off from each other. Like the last four would be 1961, the dude standing next to him, 1962, the dude standing next to him, 1963. But he said, when we run them through E-Verify, the government's verification employment system, says they're clear.
Well, that's my thing with the nail industry too, because that's my, like, I'm a licensed nail tech in North Carolina. It's been such a huge thing for so long where they buy their license off of the internet, and where you, even if you go in and check the license comes back as good. So then what case or what proof evidence? I mean, because that all, and I don't mean this like insensitive or anything
No,
like that, but all their names are like the same.
Yeah.
So you really don't know, like, if Jane Doe is, this is her license, but Jane Doe, the
Right.
person changes every day.
Right.
It's just the same ID versus the same license. So then like what case or what,
We are able to figure it out via looking at,
same way with the massage parlors.
yeah,
their
doing
license.
the surveillance, seeing, okay, did these 7 nail techs just come out at the same time? Okay. And did these 7 nail techs, did they disappear 2 months later? And another 6 to 9 pull in to town and stuff. That's one way. The licenses becomes extremely obscure, because now I just have to try to check that through the Secretary of State, but that's not the way I try to look at it. I try to look at where these employees come from, where they being housed.
But as a consumer on the back side,
On the consumer on the backside, if you get there,
like all we can do is verify.
yeah, I've never even tried to verify anybody's license, but you just gotta go in there and pay attention. One of the particular chief, there was a particular chief that I was talking to, and she had stated, she says, well, we don't have any of that going on with like our nail places. As I was looking at, she had beautiful nails, and I looked, and I was like, oh, those look really gorgeous. I said, that artwork that you got on there, I said, I know you didn't do that by yourself. I said, it'd be hard to see. She goes, no, I get my nails done about every three weeks to 3 to 5 weeks. And I said, cool. I said, the location you're going to is mostly Asian. Everybody is just Asian. You know,
Like
nails the
Channel,
best.
they pop up on YouTube.
And I said, good. I said, is it a big nail salon? She goes, yeah, they've got about 25 to 30 nail techs. And I said, how long have you been going there? She said, about 9 years. I said, do you go see the same nail tech every time you go in? No, you go in and they call a number and somebody comes out from the back, so you see somebody different. I said, well, if you've been going there for several years, surely you should see the same employees. And she goes, oh, I don't. I said, does it seem like those employees, it's a new set of faces about every 2 to 3 times that you go in there? And she kind of went, no. I'm just telling you the reality of what this looks like. You know, this is what we see in all of our list investigations. So, but licensing, I don't even go into the license. I've never even touched that part of the case yet. I'm just trying to prove that a body's going from point A to point B, and a new set of bodies show up, which shows me the trafficking aspect.
But it's just frustrating for like those of us that are legal and do the right thing.
Yeah.
When you contact the cosmetology board, they're like, well, the ID matches this license, you know, so there's never a whole lot of ownership from the state per se, like as long as that ID that day matches that license, that's all they get.
And is that a true ID that they have in their hand? Yeah.
I believe we've done a good job within the last couple of years on buy local, shop local and all of that. So we all know that China bought Tyson and Smithfields. If we know that, we should not be buying any of their products because we know what China stands for. And so as consumers, once again, are you gonna pay the little extra money and get something that's truly made here, or go to your local farmer? Or are you gonna continue, because you might as well just hand the money over to the cartel, because that's what you're doing. So, I mean, I know I make a conscious effort. Am I perfect at it? No, because sometimes we don't have the choices, but I really try to eliminate where I shop and what I buy just because I don't like the way that what they stand for.
And I agree, buy local, stay local, if you buy it from individual farms, if you can grow it yourself, be self-sustaining. I do want to point this out real quick too. We've got a learning academy. There is some free courses like Human Trafficking in the US. You get on, just go to Hope for Justice Learning Academy. Hope for Justice Learning Academy. And they've got some free training on there. They've got Human Trafficking in the US. Keeping kids safe in the digital world. That's a free course. That's free. That's free. You got a kid, you got a phone, take that. You got a kid on a computer, take that class. It will blow your mind. If you are in the hospitality industry anywhere, working at hotels, anything like that, that course is $15. It talks about what's going on with the cleaning crews, labor trafficking and stuff like that. If you are a clinician, a doctor, you're working at a medical location or something like this, true fact, right now it's estimated that 88.6% of human trafficking victims at some point in time during their trafficking, while they were a victim of trafficking, had some sort of medical intervention. Whether they went to a doctor in the box, the urgent care center, Walgreens, the emergency room, okay? Now think of how overburdened that emergency room is, that urgent care center and stuff like that. And as a clinician, I understand when I talk to doctors and nurses, and they say, look, man, I got this much time by our standard to spend with the patient, okay? It gives you the tips, the clues, the identifiers to look at and how to do basically, it'll even give you like a checklist. And a lot of people get caught up too. A lot of doctors sit down and say, well, look, I can't even report it anyways because I think it would go against our company policy and it's a HIPAA violation. Absolutely not. You are not giving out PII, and I can guide you through that whole HIPAA circle right there and tell you how to avert that. The other thing is there's a module in there on human trafficking law enforcement. That one is law enforcement sensitive, so you do have to be commissioned, whether it's reserve or active or something like that. But those are all free and available. And if you want to reach me, there is my email. If you have tips or something like that, questions, email me there. If you need other training, longer training, more specific training with a lot more examples outside of, because we basically have an hour and a half, so I'm rushing through a lot of stuff. You have tips or anything, if it's an emergency, like you see those crews or something like that, those the magazine crews or something like that, please call the police, let them know they are the first to handle it, deal with it, stuff like that. If you have tips on anything that seem emergent, especially sex trafficking, please notify the police, okay? Because I've had a few people call me and said, hey, look, I know a girl, I'm confident she was being sex trafficked. Sounded like she was having sex all night, and I saw like 8 different guys go in there, and they all stayed in there like 10 to 15 minutes at a time. The girl looks like she's like 15 years old, and I'm like, you need to call the police. You're right now, not me, okay? On that, so we can get you helped out at any point in time. So that's what I had. Thank you. I'm sorry I ran over, but we didn't have a lot of questions.
Thank you for coming and sharing this information with us. I know it's important to all facets of the human service field because we run into folks who may be experiencing these types of hardships. And if we're aware of it, we know what to look for, then maybe we can help somebody even outside of what it is that we do in our regular everyday jobs and purposes. I would like you to please make sure you sign in on your sign-in sheet, and we at Burke Recovery and BSAN hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you guys for coming.